I knew the cake wasn't for me the moment I saw the pink and blue streamers tied around the patio lights. Not that anyone said it out loud. No one ever says things directly in this family. They just reroute your worth until you forget it. Had a place. I stood there, holding the little paper-wrapped gift I'd brought for myself. It sounds pathetic, I know. But after 25 years of forgotten cards and last-minute dollar store balloons, I thought maybe, just maybe, this year I'd be the one to make it special. So I bought myself a silver pendant shaped like a crescent, moon. Mom always said I was born during a thunderstorm under a full moon. A dramatic start for a girl who never liked attention. Except that wasn't true. I just stopped trying to earn attention when I realized it was already bought and paid for. By someone else. Today, I came home expecting nothing, and somehow still left with less. There were folding chairs arranged in circles and pink lemonade in glass jars. And there she was, Madison. Belly perfectly rounded, dress floral and flowing, smiling like she'd never stolen a single thing in her life. "Surprise!" they all shouted when she came out. I was still holding the gift bag when they turned, the music back on, still holding it when Mom came over and said, "Oh, sweetheart, I know it's technically your birthday, but Madison really needed this. It's her first baby, you understand. Technically." I don't remember walking away from her, just the sound of my own heartbeat and the quiet crush of grass under my shoes as I moved toward the edge of the yard. Flashback. 3 weeks ago, I'd asked if we could have dinner. Nothing big, just the 5 of us, me, Mom, Dad, Madison, her husband Eric. Nothing fancy, I texted. Maybe tacos and carrot cake. I'll bring the wine. No one responded for 3 days, and when Mom finally did, it was, "Hey honey, can we rain check? Maddie's been really sick with the pregnancy, poor thing. We're gonna keep it low-key." I had nodded into the silence of my apartment, pretending not to feel the way the cold clung to my ribs. But I still bought the carrot cake. Still lit a candle. Still sang to myself in a whisper that didn't quite reach the corners of the room. So when I saw the full spread on the patio, catered food, matching napkins, an entire gender reveal balloon arch, something inside me sank so low I swear it passed through the center of the earth and came out cold. No one even looked at me. Except Eric. He gave me this awkward half nod like he couldn't remember if I was an actual sibling or a +1 someone forgot to disinvite. Madison was holding a cupcake when they called everyone over. "I'm just so grateful," she said, glowing. "This has been the most amazing surprise. I had no idea." Liar, she. Had to know. She planned it the same way she always planned everything, with Mom and her calendar, and the way they act like I'm a houseplant that doesn't bloom. I sat down on the far end of the lawn. My name wasn't on anything, not the welcome sign. Not a card, not even a text. And then the balloon popped, pink. It was a girl, screams, cheers, phones flashing, tears even. And I just kept sitting there, clutching the little silver pendant in its soft velvet box. I'd bought it for myself because no one ever would. Because it reminded me of what Mom used to say. Before it became a punchline. Before Madison's wedding. Before the pregnancy. Before I became optional. I didn't make a scene. I didn't cry. I didn't throw the cake or scream about how they forgot again. I just walked back inside, left the gift bag on the kitchen counter, and slipped out through the side gate. No one followed. I don't think anyone noticed I was gone until the photos were already uploaded, One by one, I watched the filtered snapshots appear on Facebook later that night. Madison with her arms in the air, Mom dabbing her eyes, Dad smiling with the stiffness of a man trained not to look too long in my direction. Caption: A beautiful day for our girl, can't wait to meet baby Ella. Ella. The name I once gave my favorite doll, the one Madison had ripped the head off of when we were little. I guess it fits. I didn't like the way it felt, the ache in my chest, low and dull, like a bruise you press just to prove it still hurts. So I closed my laptop and sat in the dark, the pendant still in my palm. I hadn't opened it. Not really. It didn't feel like mine anymore. Madison's always had this way of absorbing the room. She walks in, and suddenly everything adjusts to her presence. Like she's the gravity, and we're all just debris. Even when we were kids, it was like I was the backup singer to her lead solo. My birthdays were held at home, homemade cake, maybe a few cousins. Hers? Pony rides. Magicians. One time they rented a bounce house that barely fit in our backyard. I remember asking Mom once why mine were different. She didn't even look up from the frosting bowl. "You never liked fuss," she said. That sentence, "you never liked fuss," became her shield for everything. When they forgot to bring me to school orientation, when they booked their summer cruise over my graduation, when they gave Madison the spare car, even though I was the one with 2 jobs. "You never liked fuss." No, I just got used to not being allowed any. I tried not to keep score. Really, I did. But the memory of small hurts has a way of filing itself neatly into corners you didn't know existed, and then reopening when you least expect it. Like when I was 13, and I had a solo in the choir concert. It was just a verse, nothing major, but I'd practiced in my room for weeks, trying to get it right. The night of the performance, I scanned the crowd. They weren't there. Madison had a sleepover the same night, and Mom said, "She was just so excited. You understand, don't you?" That phrase. Again. You understand. I always understood. I understood that my value was negotiable. But what keeps echoing now, louder than anything, is that moment in the yard when Mom leaned close, her perfume sweet and cloying, and said, "It's her first baby, you understand," as if I'd been hoarding celebration, as if my 25th birthday, my only 25th birthday, was just a placeholder in someone else's spotlight. I didn't go to work the next day. I called in sick and stayed under the covers until noon. No one texted to check on me. Not even a thank you for the gift I left behind. Though maybe they assumed it was for the baby. It wasn't. It was for me. A tiny, rapt attempt at telling myself I mattered. I should have kept it. Should have walked away with something. But instead I left it there, because part of me still wanted them to notice it, to ask who it was from, to realize, maybe too late, what they'd done. But I've lived long enough to know. They won't. I haven't returned their calls. 3 voicemails, all from Mom. The first one was cheery, like nothing happened. "Sweetheart, you disappeared. Hope everything's okay. Madison's wondering if you can come by this weekend and help sort baby shower invites." The second one, slightly more irritated. "We're all a bit confused about why you left so early. It was such a nice day. Please don't make this about you." And the third, quieter. "I just wish you wouldn't be so sensitive. It was one day. You're not a child." I deleted all 3. Not out of anger, not entirely. But because I didn't want to keep giving her the chance to reframe my pain as pettiness. I'm not a child, but I was one once. And that girl still sits quietly inside me, in every moment I was told to understand, to be mature, to not take up space. But I'm beginning to wonder, what if I stopped understanding? I didn't answer when Madison texted the next day. Hey, sorry about the timing, LOL. I didn't even realize it was your birthday until someone mentioned it later. Hope you still had fun. I stared at it for a long time. The double exclamation points. The LOL. The way she made herself sound like the victim of an honest mistake instead of the carefully orchestrated center of every room. I didn't reply. Not because I didn't have words, but because for once, I wanted to keep them for myself. That week, I stopped showing up in small ways, not in loud rebellion. No slam doors, no screaming matches, just soft, quiet acts of self-preservation. I muted the group chat. I let calls go unanswered. I took the framed family photo off my bookshelf and placed it in the drawer beneath the sink, next to things I don't need but haven't thrown away yet. I started going to the library after work instead of straight home. Sat near the back with a second-hand copy of The Bell Jar and let Sylvia Plath say things I couldn't. I think the first real moment of clarity came in the grocery store. I was in the tea aisle, holding a box of chamomile, when I overheard two women arguing softly near the dairy section. One was older, maybe late 50s, talking about how her daughter never called anymore. The other said, well, maybe she got tired of being the one who always reached out. And I don't know why. But that sentence cracked something inside. Me. Not like glass shattering, but more like a thread slowly loosening from a tightly wound knot. I realized I was always the one who reached out, to plan the birthdays, to send the gifts, to show up with flowers on Mother's Day, to apologize, even when I was the one hurt. Every thread, every tie, every connection, it always started with me, and maybe it was time to stop sewing what no one cared to wear. The pendant was still on my nightstand. I hadn't worn it, not because I didn't love it, but because part of me still associated it with that day. But that night, I lit a candle, turned off the overhead light, and fastened it around my neck, like armor. The crescent moon resting just over my collarbone felt colder than I expected, but steady, like something I chose, and not something chosen for me. A few days later, Mom invited me to Madison's baby shower planning brunch. You don't have to do much, she said on the voicemail. Just bring your creative ideas. You were always so good with themes. Right. Because I was always better in the background, useful but forgettable. I didn't answer. Instead, I looked through old text messages, searching for proof of the last time she asked how I was doing, how work was, if I liked the new place I moved into last year, if I still painted, if I was okay. There was nothing, just requests, favors, reminders. Can you pick up something for Maddie? She's been so tired. Can you help? Try not to take it personally. I started deleting them, not in anger, but as an act of quiet reordering. If I had to carry their absence, I didn't want to carry their noise too. It's funny. The less I answered, the louder they got. Mom sent another message the following week. You're pulling away again? I hope you're not letting jealousy get in the way of family. And that's when I knew they hadn't just forgotten my birthday. They had never known me at all. Jealousy, as if this was about balloons and cake. As if I hadn't spent my entire life begging to be seen, and was now simply, finally, walking away from the door that never opened. I didn't respond. Instead, I opened a new note on my phone. Typed one sentence. You don't have to burn the bridge. You just have to stop crossing it. Then I turned off the light, lay down with the moon pendant pressed against my skin, and let the silence feel like a room that belonged to me. It's strange how silence changes people. Not yours, theirs. The moment you stop explaining yourself, stop cushioning your absences with soft words and emojis and just been busy, they start squirming in the space you used to fill for free. 2 weeks went by. No messages from Madison, just a tag on a baby registry post where she listed a $900 stroller and signed it with 3 hearts. Mom, though, Mom tried everything. First, it was the guilt-stitched kind. I know you're going through something, but this family needs you. We always counted on your level head. Then came the soft threats. Don't push us away and then blame us for the distance. I didn't answer any of it. Instead, I started writing a list, just for myself, titled, Things I Won't Apologize for Anymore. Saying no without a reason. Leaving early when I feel invisible. Not being the helper when no one helps me. Choosing peace over performance. Being angry. Being disappointed. Being enough. I keep it taped inside my journal now, tucked behind a pressed flower I found in a used novel. A daisy, flattened so gently I imagined someone like me must have done it. Someone who also tried to preserve softness in a world that kept stepping on it. The next family gathering was Easter. They planned a picnic, of course. The kind where everything is pastel and filtered through someone else's Instagram aesthetic. Madison posted about it the day before. Can't wait to see all my favorite people tomorrow. Ella's first Easter egg. I wasn't tagged. Of course I wasn't. I stared at that post for a full minute before closing the app, and then I did something I didn't know I was allowed to do. I un-RSVP'd. Not with a call. Not with a sorry I can't make it, just silence. I sat on my own porch the next day, alone. And it was the most peaceful Easter I've ever had. I made lemon tea, wore the sweater no one ever complimented, lit a candle that smelled like eucalyptus, and books. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I was missing anything, because maybe they weren't my favorite people either. Later that week, Madison texted again. Heard you skipped Easter. Everything okay? Also, need help with the nursery this weekend. Dad said you're great with colors. I looked at the screen. Then I put my phone down and walked into my room. I opened my closet. Ran my fingers along the dresses I wore to her bridal shower, her graduation, her birthday brunch. Each one carried the scent of a girl I had to shrink myself to be. And then I found it. A wrapped gift bag tucked on the top shelf. The pendant box, unopened since I'd retrieved it quietly from Mom's counter 2 days after the party. They hadn't asked. No one mentioned it. I opened it again, this time alone, this time deliberately. The silver moon still gleamed. It hadn't dulled. It hadn't forgotten me. I clasped it around my neck, then stared at myself in the mirror. Something about my reflection felt clearer than it used to. Like grief had peeled something away, and underneath there was a person I actually liked. Quiet. Steady. Refusing. I never answered Madison's text. She followed up the next day with a simple, "Wow, okay." And that was it. I guess they expected me to return like a dog trained to come home no matter how many times it's been kicked. But I didn't, because I'm not angry anymore. Not the way they'd like to believe. I'm not bitter or broken or lost. I'm just not theirs. I think the first time I understood what it meant to be invisible was at my own 8th birthday party. It had rained that year. Sheets of gray slashing across the windows, soaking the backyard where Mom had promised a scavenger hunt and water balloons. Instead, we stayed inside. Paper streamers wilted. The candles wouldn't stay lit. And Madison, only 5 back then, threw a tantrum so loud it drowned out the happy birthday song entirely. She wanted the bigger slice of cake. And when I gave it to her, quietly, without protest, everyone called me such a good big sister. They took a photo of the moment. Madison grinning, chocolate on her cheeks. Me next to her, holding the knife, my smile half-formed, like I wasn't sure what face to wear. They framed that picture. It still sits on Mom's hallway table. That was the day I learned, if I'm quiet, I'll be praised. If I give, I'll be loved. If I don't ask, I won't be disappointed. But no one asked what I wished for when I blew out the candle scraps. I wished someone would choose me. I hadn't thought about that day in years. Not until last night, when I passed by a bakery on my walk home. A little girl stood in the window, pointing at cupcakes, her voice loud and certain. She didn't shrink, didn't lower her voice or look around to make sure it was okay to want something. I stood there longer than I meant to. Then I went inside and bought myself a cupcake. Vanilla, white frosting, a single edible flower on top. I took it home, sat in the middle of my living room, lit one match, let it flicker, and I whispered, just once, "Happy birthday." No audience, no applause, just me, just this, just enough. Mom called again. This time she didn't leave a message. But later that night, I saw she'd tagged me in an old photo on Facebook, that same 8th birthday picture. Her caption read, "My girls, always so close. So grateful for the bond they've always had, sisters." It made my stomach twist. Not in pain, but in clarity. Because that's what she wanted people to believe. That silence equals closeness. That giving without asking is love. That proximity is proof of something sacred. But I knew better now. There's a difference between love and loyalty, trained into silence. I untagged myself. Not out of anger, just honesty. Because if I let them keep crafting the narrative, I'd vanish inside it forever. Later that night, I pulled out a blank notebook. One I'd been too afraid to write in before, afraid I had nothing worth saying if no one was listening. But now it was mine. The first page, I wrote my name, in bold, in ink. Not the version they used when calling for favors, or attaching it to gifts I didn't give. My name. Just as I say it to myself when no one else is around. The way I want to exist, outside their noise, outside their need. I'm not angry. I keep repeating that, and I think it's finally true. This isn't revenge. Not really. It's not loud, not sharp. It's just me, leaving the room they kept forgetting I was in. The baby shower invitation came in the mail a week later. Heavy cardstock, floral border. gold-embossed letters that spelled out Madison's full name like it was a brand. Celebrating, Madison and baby Ella. At the bottom, in smaller font, hosted with love by Mom and Dad. My name wasn't listed anywhere. Not as host. Not as guest of honor. Just an address label typed in generic font, like junk mail, like an afterthought. The RSVP card was tucked inside, with a pink envelope and a line that read, "Please reply by the 10th. I held it for a long time, the same way you hold a goodbye before it's spoken. That night, I stood in the hallway of my apartment, staring at the cupboard where I kept old decorations. The leftover party napkins, the unused candles, a banner that once read "Congratulations" in faded silver letters. None of them were mine. They were for the parties I helped plan, for everyone else. And for the first time, I saw it clearly. I had spent so much time setting the stage for other people's joy that I had no idea what mine even looked like. So I didn't RSVP. Not yes, not no. I just placed the envelope in the bin and let it be swallowed. And then I did something small. Almost laughably small. I removed their birthdays from my calendar. The reminders that used to buzz like obligations I couldn't ignore. Now? Silence, not out of cruelty, but out of mercy, for myself. The baby shower happened on a Sunday. I knew the date by heart, but that morning I made no effort to remember. Instead, I booked a morning train out of town. A cheap ticket to a Yimanai, place I'd never been. A coastal town with bookstores and fog, where no one knew my last name, or the way I'd always been the background character in someone else's celebration. I sat by the window, wore my pendant, brought a journal and a single pen, and as the train moved, I began to write. They threw her a baby shower on my bones. Every laugh, every toast, every matching plate was built on a girl they taught not to expect anything. And still, she made her way out of that house. Quietly, without setting fire, without explaining herself, without apologizing for leaving empty-handed. When I arrived, the town smelled like salt and bread. I found a little cafe near the edge of the boardwalk, all wood beams and warm lamps, and took the corner seat no one ever offers back home. I stayed there for hours, read half a novel, ordered a second coffee, watched the ocean pretend not to carry every secret I'd ever swallowed, and when my phone buzzed with a message from Mom, just a photo of Madison holding a pile of pink gift bags, I didn't open it. I didn't even look. I just turned the phone over and pressed it face down into the wood grain, because not showing up isn't the same as disappearing. Sometimes it's how you finally appear, to yourself. When I got back from the coast, the apartment felt different. It wasn't cleaner or quieter. It was just mine again. The trip had been short, only 2 nights. But that version of me, the one who didn't rush home, who didn't answer texts mid-coffee, who didn't flinch at absence, she stayed with me. She unpacked slowly. She didn't fill the room with apology. She didn't go back to being the helper just because the week had begun again. Mom called the next morning. I let it ring, and then again at lunch. This time, I watched the voicemail icon pop up and stared at it until it disappeared. Not because I didn't care, but because I finally did. That evening I opened the message. "Hi, sweetheart. I know things have felt off lately, and I just wanted to say, we missed you. Madison noticed you weren't at the shower. She didn't say anything, but I could tell. It would have meant a lot." She paused. A sigh. That motherly tone she uses when trying to soften control into something that sounds like love. Look, I know things haven't always been fair. But that's life. You have to show up. Even when it's hard, even when you feel overlooked. You're the strong one. That's who you've always been. I sat there a long time after she hung up, listening to the echo of that last sentence. You're the strong one. A praise dressed like a chain. Because what she really meant was, you don't get to break down, you don't get to leave, you don't get to stop giving. The next day, a card showed up in the mail, from Madison, white envelope, baby pink lettering. Inside, a photo of her holding her bump, one hand resting on her stomach, the other raised in a peace sign. Wish you could have been there. Still hoping you'll be part of Ella's life. Let's not be weird, okay? No. How are you? No, I'm sorry. No mention of what day it had been when they threw her that party. Just an expectation that I'd fold myself again. Slide back into the role. Laugh, assist, be the dependable one. But here's the thing. I didn't want to be part of Ella's life if it meant erasing mine. I folded the card, carefully, evenly, and placed it in a drawer. Not in anger, just to remember the shape of what I would no longer chase. A few nights later, Dad called. He never calls, I answered out of instinct. Hey, kiddo. Just checking in. His voice was low, a little awkward. He never says much unless Mom's prompting him in the background. Your mom's worried. She says you've been distant. I didn't respond. There was a pause. She means well. You know how she is. She wants everyone together. You girls, you're all we've got. All we've got. Funny how that only mattered when I started leaving the table. Anyway, he continued, thought maybe you'd swing by this weekend. Your mom's making chicken piccata. It's your favorite, right? Right. The dish she made once, 6 years ago, because I had a rough week and Madison was out of town. No pressure, he added. Too late. I said I'd think about it. And I did. For an entire day I thought about it. I thought about how many times I showed up with arms full of gifts and heart empty. How often I stayed late just to be forgotten early. How the chicken piccata would be served in silence, their smiles stretched, over what they didn't want to ask. Are you punishing us? Are you different now? Are you going to leave for good? I didn't go. I lit a candle, sat at my tiny kitchen table, made pasta with no sauce and too much salt. I ate it slowly, deliberately, like I mattered. Then I picked up my journal and wrote one sentence. Just because I was always there doesn't mean I always will be. It's been 5 weeks since I last saw them. No one's asked to visit. No one's dropped by. No surprise knock at my door with leftover cake or guilt wrapped in plastic containers. Just space. Space I didn't ask for, but once I had it, I didn't give it back. Ella was born last Tuesday. I found out through a post. A photo of Madison in a hospital bed, looking flushed and radiant, holding a baby wrapped in pink. The caption read, "Welcome to the world, Ella Rose. You are so loved." The comments were full of hearts and congratulations. I scrolled through them, looking for my name, even though I knew it wouldn't be there. I wasn't tagged. I wasn't mentioned. And somehow, that didn't hurt the way it used to. That night, I walked to the park near my building, the one where the trees hold their silence like old friends. I sat on a bench with my coat pulled close and let the cold settle around me like a truth I no longer needed to resist. Across the grass, I watched a little girl chase Bubbles with a kind of joy that doesn't ask permission. Her laughter broke the dusk in half, and I thought, that was never me. But maybe it still could be. Not the child, not the innocence, but the freedom, the permission to exist without needing to prove I was worth celebrating. They'll tell stories about this one day. Maybe around a dinner table I'm not invited to. Maybe in passing, she just drifted. We don't know what happened. She changed, but I didn't. I just stopped asking to be loved the way they refused to. I still wear the pendant. Every day, the crescent moon rests just above my collarbone. Light, simple, quiet. It doesn't sparkle. It doesn't shout. But it stays. It belongs to me. The final message came a few days later, from Mom. No subject line, no emojis. She's here. We thought you'd want to know. I didn't reply. Not because I didn't care, but because I finally understood something they never did. You can love people and still leave them. You can wish them well and still walk away. You can grieve what you never got and still choose peace over permission. I made myself tea, put on the sweater no one ever complimented, and opened the window. Outside, the wind stirred the trees like someone exhaling gently. Inside, it was quiet, but not empty. I was still here, and for the first time in my life, that was enough.